Welcome, 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 Foxes, to our weekly Foxenomics office hours. Kent is still out. He gets back on Thursday. So I'm your host today. I got an agenda in the stage chat. If there's any other topics that anyone would like to make sure we discuss today, feel free to suggest them. The high level, we're going to be talking about the Olympus bonds and giving an update on the current status of the bond program and the changes that were made since last week. We're also going to talk about Rari and have a discussion around whether or not to pay back some of our loan. Again, I gave a quick update on Coinbooks, which is the tool that we've been working with to automate a lot of our DAO Treasury accounting. Then we're going to hear from Professor McCarthy on the next round of liquidity mining. There's a proposal for that going through the motions. And then we're going to wrap up today with a special guest, Revest Finance. I see Rob and Nan just joined. Welcome, Rob. And we got Dollar Bill. Welcome, gents. We're going to bring you guys up probably around in about 30 minutes, I'm estimating. But if we wrap up on the rest of the agenda sooner, we can bring you guys up to give us an overview of Revest and open it up to the community to ask any questions. All right, so let's start with the update on the bonds. Last week, we were having a discussion around whether to end the bond programs or reduce them. There's a really good discussion that came from that, and the decisions that came from that after the conversation with the community. The Tmdc voted to decrease the amount of Fox emitted for the Usdc bonds. So previously, we were targeting around 7.5 million Fox to be emitted and used to purchase USDC each month. The latest change that was just implemented reduces this to 3.5 million. So it's about a 54% reduction in the total Fox we're emitting, as well as the total amount of USDC we're hoping to acquire from those bonds. So the thought process there was to not turn them off entirely, but get them down to a level that would just cover our monthly burn that we're spending to fund all work streams. The bond committee is in charge of the ETH bonds, and their decision was to not end those ETH bonds until the 7th, 1 month from now, July 7th, when they are scheduled to end anyways. So we haven't made any changes there. Those are going to continue. There's one final transaction that needs to get executed for the new USDC bonds to go live. And we're just waiting on Gnosis Safe's UI to update the. So we're kind of at the whims of Gnosis Safe's UI, but hopefully that will their UI will update during this call, and we can execute the next transaction to launch these bonds. All right, we've also got an update on Rari. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for this one if anyone's interested in checking it out. As a reminder, Rari is the tool it's a protocol that we use that it supports Fox's collateral. So it's something that you all can use to use your Fox's collateral and borrow against it. It's something the DAO has used itself. And if you guys recall, they got exploited. They got hacked. I think it was a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of time in crypto land. And since their hack, they paused borrowing on all of their pools, and they're actively working to fix the exploit so it's not possible again, and make sure they get everything triple audited so that there aren't any remaining vulnerabilities. But in the meantime, the loan that we were previously borrowing on Rari, the interest rate has gone through the roof. So the way these lending pools work is there's a curve for every asset, and the interest rate is determined by how much of the available supply of collateral for a given asset is currently borrowed. And although borrowing is paused, you can still withdraw your collateral. So what we've seen since Rari got exploited is that pretty much all of the extra liquidity has continuously been removed, and that's caused the APR to go really high. And because we have such a large loan in there, it's currently costing the DAO around $120,000 per month in fee for the interest rates we're charging to have this outstanding loan. And that's expensive. So we were just chatting at the Tmdc on this call that we have every week before the tokenomics call around whether or not we should pay back some or even all of this loan so that we can stop paying this expensive interest rate every block. The obvious trade-offs of doing this, like the big benefit, is that it saves us that high expense. The big downside is that it takes those stables out of our treasury. And certainly the hope is that we would be able to borrow against Fox again in the future once the interest rates come back down and borrowing is re-enabled. But again, we're at the whims of Rari protocol in order to do that. So it's the only protocol that has nearly this much liquidity available for, and with also Fox support as a collateral type. So we thought office hours would be a great time to kind of have this discussion with the community, see if anyone's got any strong feelings. We could also do a poll to measure, get some quick signal on sentiment. And then based on kind of this discussion and ongoing discussions with the Tmdc, they're planning to have a vote sometime in the next week to potentially pay some of this back. Certainly wanted to hear the community's thoughts before we do it. Also, we did pay back $250,000 of this loan previously to when the interest rate was very high. And what we've seen when we did that is that once loans get paid back and there's more liquidity available, the liquidity tends to be withdrawn pretty quickly by the suppliers. So we could pay back a little bit and decrease the APR temporarily, but there's a good chance that the APR would spike back up pretty quickly.
Hey, Willie, you said you're sharing your screen. How are you sharing your screen?
I am sharing in Zoom.
Oh, in Zoom. Yeah, right. Okay.
I'll go ahead. I'll post a quick screenshot too, if that helps.
So yeah, we're curious. Does anyone have any thoughts? Where 1.7 million is how much we owe. The other relevant factors here. So is that at 92% interest, to keep this loan costs $133,000 a month. That's how much interest we pay on this loan. And there's nowhere else to borrow from. So we can't, ideally we would love to borrow somewhere cheaper and repay this, but there is no other place to borrow from. So what we could do is we have the money in our stables, in our treasury, right? And we currently have 5.8 million stables in our treasury. We're going to pay a little under 700,000 for the budget this month. So that's going to bring us to 5.1 million. So to pay down this loan and save $133,000 a month in interest, our treasury would go from 5.1 to 3.4 million, which gets starting to feel kind of low. But the idea is that as soon as Rari re-enables borrowing, we borrow again and we put the stables back into the treasury for about the same amount as we've borrowed, as we would be repaying now. And the risk is that that doesn't become an option. The pool decides not to re-enable borrowing, and then no other pool will allow Fox as a collateral. So that's a lot of different factors. Anybody have, we're just looking for community sentiment on this. What happens if we default on the loan? Yeah, I mean, the balance just keeps going up as the interest accrues. Well, what happens is we lose the Fox collateral, right? How much Fox collateral do we have in there right now? We currently have 43 million Fox collateral. So if we default, we lose 43 million Fox.
And then to be more precise, that is accurate, but we don't necessarily lose it all. So the way that it works is that, let's say we get to the Fox price goes down. We've calculated that to be about 5 cents. So Fox price would have to go below 5 cents for us the amount that we're borrowing to exceed our borrow limit. When that happens, somebody would be able to close 50%. They'd be able to basically buy 50% of our Fox by paying back half of this loan. They would not be able to get all of it. So what would happen is that once they bought back 50%, we would likely, unless it was a flash crash, we would likely be back over our borrow limit. So there were, and then again, if the Fox price went down again, then they'd be able to close another 50%. So they wouldn't be able to liquidate our entire collateral in one transaction. But you know, it's safe to assume that that's what basically what happened is we would start to lose our collateral, and our collateral would get liquidated. So the way that most of these liquidations happen from bots who are watching just to see whenever there's an opportunity to liquidate, and they usually have like a little gas war to whoever pays the most gas and can still be profitable, their transaction will get confirmed. So what would also happen is that Fox would likely be immediately sold through a DEX, which would then push the price of Fox down further. So definitely quite possible if we were to get down to that dangerous territory that cascading liquidations would cause all of this collateral essentially to be liquidated, and would also have a significant impact on the price of Fox.
Yeah, and then the longer this loan stays unpaid, the balance goes up, and that price of Fox that causes partial liquidations gets to be a higher and higher price also.
Great point. So yeah, curious to hear.
Yeah, thoughts. By the way, we won't hold anybody to any opinion that you share right now. Just looking for like some feels from people.
HPain has a question. We can't borrow from Agave. We could borrow from Agave. However, you can only borrow however much Fox collateral is there. You can check out Agave Finance and see what it is, but it's a low amount. Of course, as we deposited or as we borrowed Fox, that would push the APR up, and that would encourage more people to deposit. So it certainly is an option, but we just have to keep in mind that we can only borrow whatever liquidity is deposited there.
Hey, can you hear me, Willie?
Yes.
Finally, something that's not hedgy I can ask about. I was asking what the interest rate was for this loan.
Yeah. Currently a cool 95%, 92.4%.
Got it. And
yeah,
you were talking to Porter, right? Kind of loose talk about a loan from them as well.
Yes, and to be honest, I have not been following the Porter conversation super closely, but I do know we've been talking with them, and I think we even have. I think they made a proposal, right? Does anyone remember?
Yeah. So I guess my question is, what's the interest rate proposed by them? Because I feel like they discussed a guaranteed amount of buying of these bonds that they create. So I feel like you could have liquid assets from that. And so just a quick thought is, obviously, like if you have debt with high interest and you can essentially refinance to a lower interest debt, you should. So I'd be interested if you could, basically just swap out a Porter Finance for Radical to basically just not be accruing like an insane interest rate.
That'd be awesome. Love that suggestion.
That makes sense for debt more than just payroll, in my opinion. I mean, it's a real practical use of debt to just not be eaten up by this insane thing, but also not have to burn through your treasury right now, which I think is kind of like what no one wants. So I don't know, I'd be interested in that. And also if it's not that, just the idea of borrowing alternatives, which I think Porter actually sounded like a pretty reasonable one, just to get rid of this bad debt and not crash the treasury.
Totally. Yeah, and I think one of my questions around Porter was always like, okay, we can, how much demand is there really going to be? And they just completed their very first convertible bond offering, and they were able to. Ribbon DAO was able to raise $3 million at a 7% APR, which is awesome. So
that's great. And Jordan mentioned in one of the calls that they had just because I think they're launching, they have favorable terms for the early partners. And favorable like guaranteed demand. So I mean that could be a really good opportunity to take advantage of for this unique situation. I'm personally kind of against debt for just like normal payroll stuff, but like for this, it's like a very practical and smart use of debt, I think.
So that's another thing where thanks for bringing that up, where we wouldn't even necessarily have to iron out all the details. We could still pay it off from the Treasury now with the aim of exploring Porter, and if Rari does not re-enable borrowing before we're ready to commit to Porter, we could decide to commit to Porter instead
Yeah, I mean, that depends on, yeah, that's a great point. I think it depends on how far out you think that is. That's definitely a strategy, but paying off debt with debt is also a good strategy because it also means you could give yourself just an extended runway if you need, like while you're figuring this out. But I think that's just like a sequencing discussion of how you'd want to do it. But yeah, that's definitely an possibility. Cool. Anyways, I'll jump off. I was just, boom, in my head, and I listen to these calls now. So thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All right, later.
I think that's a pretty great option. I do think my personal gut on this, I think we should pay this off. I think it's very expensive for the DAO to keep paying this, and saving expenses is the equivalent to increasing revenues. So if it's the big risk, of course, is just taking those stables out of our treasury and potentially not being able to borrow again or get those stables back in there before we run out of runway, which is a very real risk. But the Porter option, there is a good chance, I think, that Rari will come back before then. But also just knowing that we have some other options like Porter make me feel more comfortable with even more comfortable with paying this loan off. Anyone in the community think we absolutely shouldn't pay this off? We should keep those stables in the treasury and keep paying the interest? Pausing for a bit. I see some people type in.
Yeah, I'm just responding to some questions.
Feel free, if you want to come join us on stage to add to the discussion, raise your hand. Pull you up. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's
hey
a
guys, how's it going?
Hey, Ocean.
Welcome, Ocean.
I was catching up a little bit. I was late to the call. Just curious. So basically, we have like 1.7 million of outstanding debt. Is that the correct number, or is it that plus the? I don't know. I see a borrow balance of 2.5, so I'm just trying to reconcile the difference there.
1.7 is how much we owe.
We also, to your question, we have this other loan in the Fox and Friends pool, but the APR on this is only 5.5%. So we're not currently contemplating also paying this off, but we could have that discussion too. For now, we were really focusing on this 1.7 balance that has a 92% APR.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. I guess like one of the things I was thinking about, it's like hard to have these conversations somewhat in isolation, right? Because like our treasury balance is so tied to our runway, which is so tied to workstream budgets. And if we were to pay it off and not have another solution lined up, like I think it might need to be in conjunction with thinking about how to cut other budgets in order to make up for the differential there, which I'm sure is not a popular viewpoint, but like it just seems like it becomes prudent if we're taking that many stables out of the treasury.
Yeah,
I
think you're absolutely right. We got to consider all this stuff together. And yeah, that's another, what's one of the big levers that we can pull to extend runways to decrease our monthly budgets. So what are your hearing that? Yeah, Ocean, do you have any thoughts on the question around paying back the loan or not? Or do you think it really depends heavily on the other budget conversations?
Yeah, one possible solution, again, like very just kind of thinking about the stuff like on the fly, but is that we try to align some sort of budget that occur over the course of 3 months or something as we repay that, right? And so theoretically, the interest rate comes down as we're repaying portions of the loan, and we see the budget cuts also take effect. Yeah, paying 100% on that is pretty hard to stomach in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we keep, for, I don't know, a month ago, we thought borrowing would be re-enabled in like a week or two, and now we're hearing it's another month, and who knows how long that actually means it's going to be.
Right.
And then they're going to allow the different pool administrators to turn borrowing back on when they want. So even though borrowing's enabled, how long until borrowing is enabled in a pool where Fox can be used as collateral, right? There's just a lot of factors. It kind of feels to me like we're in this for at least a couple months. Then you're at easily over $250,000 in interest you're paying for those couple months.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did decide in the private meeting, we decided that we just wanted to gather some data, and Kent is back on Thursday. We didn't want to make a decision about it without Kent. I mean, we've been talking about this every week in the tokenomics meeting, this loan. So we'll talk about it with Kent when he's back on Thursday. Thanks everybody for comments and opinions. Appreciate it.
+1. Thanks, Ocean, for jumping up here. One other thing too, I think I do really appreciate that suggestion to look into Porter, and I think that's one thing that it's a good action item we can take from this for the Tmdc to also just look at Porter as another alternative to get some stables back into the Treasury. Sweet. All right, wrapping up the conversation on Rari. Got a quick update on Coinbooks for anyone who is interested. Let me see if it's the right. I think this is the right file. Yeah. Coinbooks is a really cool tool that we've been talking to that is building basically like QuickBooks for DAOs. So Darwin and MB Maria have really been in close contact, basically telling the founder of Coinbooks everything that we would need to see as a DAO in order to basically move over from these spreadsheets that we have set up, which are awesome, but require, they're a little bit hacky. They require some manual updates into the software, which one of the really cool things about it is that we can basically plug in multiple different addresses to track. So not only can we track transactions and balances in the DAO Treasury on mainnet, but we can track the DAO Treasury on Gnosis Safe and any other addresses that we'd like to track. That, like, for example, when we had the one Fox strategy, we can plug that in there as well. And one of the cool things we're building is the ability to just automatically tag these transactions so that once we execute a transaction once and tag it, like for example, the adding Foxy rewards to the Foxy contract, we won't have to manually relabel and reconcile that transaction over and over again. Coinbooks will just automatically tag it as the same way that we previously tagged it. Just want to give an update on this. We're not quite at the point where we're ready to switch over. They don't actually have Gnosis chain support quite yet, and we're talking with them about adding that. We're basically getting to the final steps where it's like just the final requirements that we would have to switch over, and they are actively working on those. So just wanted to give a quick update and a shout out to Maria and Darwin on that, and let you guys know that's still in progress. All right, next up on the agenda, we've got this next round of liquidity mining to discuss, and I'm going to bring up the proposer himself, Professor McCarthy, to give us an overview on that. GM Professor.
GM Willie, how you doing today?
Best day ever. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Yeah, so got this proposal up there, so SCP-83, to extend our protocol-owned liquidity and also to start some protocol-owned liquidity through the Bancor V3. So very little changes from the original post, but to kind of go back, so it would continue the liquidity mining reward program on Uniswap V2 for another 4.5 months, past its current early July end date, along with the creation and funding of incentives on V3. So we would split the existing 13.5 million Fox into two 6.75 million Fox kind of bundles of rewards. One that will extend the Uniswap V2 program starting 2 days before the current one ends, and then starting the Bancor V3 when available, which should be any day now. And so they're going to match us 50,000 of their Bancor token as long as we spin this up. Part of the discussion, and again, I didn't really get too much feedback on it, was whether or not we want to actually create and fund an extra above and beyond the existing impermanent loss protection that Bancor provides, if we want to fund an extra pool, similar to how some other DAOs have done. So I guess I will go ahead and I'll post as a response to this kind of some of the information about what other DAOs have done, so that people can kind of take a look at what our peers have done and hopefully generate some more conversation there. And you know, if you disapprove of the proposal, please feel free to respond to the proposal, or you know, send a message to me and let me know why you disagree with it and what should be corrected, and I'd be happy to accommodate that. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, and thanks for being open to feedback. And yeah, I just want to reiterate that best practices, if you are going to disapprove of a proposal, always encourage to give some reasoning as to why, to help the proposer understand how they could address that feedback. Sweet. Thank you, Professor. That forum post is in ideation right now. It looks like it's going to be in ideation for at least another 4 days. So please, Foxes, go check it out and vote yes or no.
Yes, thank you. Please go smash that like button. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Professor. All right, that is all the topics we had on the agenda for our special guest. So at this point, I'm going to invite Dollar Bill and Rob Anon up to the stage. GM Rob.
Here y'all.
Hey, mic check works.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
All right,
Hey, Dollar Bill.
fantastic. It's a pleasure to meet y'all today.
Great to meet you too. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us out, guys.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So I think Toasty and Crusher initially made contact with you guys, and I got looped in, got to learn a little bit about Revest. It certainly seems like a very interesting protocol that could certainly be useful to ShapeShift and interesting to the community. At the very least, I think it's a very interesting, unique protocol that will be helpful for Foxes to learn about. But yeah, you guys, I saw you you got your forum post up this morning, kind of giving more details around how ShapeShift and Revest could work together. So it's a perfect opportunity to kind of give an overview of Revest, this proposal, and hear any questions from the community. So I'd love to hand it over to you guys. There is a Zoom link in the stage chat if you want to share your screen. Are you planning on sharing any screen stuff today?
I could do that, absolutely.
Okay, sweet.
Get the good old demo FNFT pulled up. So
Zoom links in the stage chat if anyone wants to follow along. And yeah, I'll hand it over to you guys to introduce yourself and Revest.
I'm going to go ahead and begin with this bad boy. Yeah, there we go. So can everyone see this? I assume that they can. And I'll go ahead and dive into it. So first off, my name is Rob Montgomery. I'm the CEO of Revest Finance. And today I am going to be sharing with y'all a very quick overview of what Revest ourselves does, what our protocol does, what we, the company Revest Finance, do, and what our next project is, Resonate. And most importantly, why it's interesting and useful to ShapeShift. So to begin with, this is an FNFT. That means financial non-fungible token. And turn on my video. There we go. So this is an FNFT. What y'all are looking at on the screen, those of you who are not in the screen, I'm going to go ahead and paste this URL into the chat so that everyone can see it. And this is not a normal NFT. As you can see, it's actually a web app. And that in itself is, a little unusual, the fact that it's connected to my MetaMask right now. Not exactly something that you normally see. But this is what it looks like on OpenSea. This is what it looks like on anything like PaintSwap, any NFT marketplace. This is actually the NFT. You'll see that it has a ticker, and you'll see it has a number. And what those are is this is an NFT. This is an FNFT. The F stands for financial. And we've locked some tokens in it. Specifically, we've locked liquid driver tokens into this one. And this one is representing a locked liquid driver, X liquid driver position. X liquid driver being liquid driver's VE curve fork. So fundamentally speaking, our system allows you to take any token or financial position and abstract its ownership into an NFT, which can then be freely transferred between wallets. So that means things like vesting positions, where you're locking the actual tokens inside the NFT. That means things like, curve forks, as is the case in this instance, where you're locking the ownership rights to the underlying tokens into the FNFT. That means things like debt positions, where you're locking the rights to receive the repayment of a peer-to-peer debt into an FNFT. And most importantly, that means things like yield futures, which is why we are here tonight. And I am going to go ahead and launch into a quick discussion of what we are offering ShapeShift. But before I do that, are there any questions about what an FNFT is, how these things work, what else can they do? Because if there are, I'd like to answer those just straight away.
Well, so I am curious. The community is pretty familiar with Hedgie. We even have one of the founders of Hedgie in the audience. One question that I'm very curious about is like, how do these FNFTs differentiate from the Hedgie NFTs? And Lindsay, feel free to raise your hand if you want to come on.
It was nice to see nice to see Hedgie, I guess, inspired by what we'd done. I'm not sure. There are a few other folks who are doing stuff in a similar vein. But the primary way is that they are, first off, web app enabled. So rather than having an art-based NFT, this is actually kind of our whole slogan is, it's not about the art to us. We are solely about financial tools and financial instruments. So we never really bothered with working with traditional NFTs. You don't usually put art inside these things. There are a few exceptions, like our NFT staking service that allows you to put any 721 inside an FNFT. But typically these systems are not designed to work with art-based systems. They also have a much wider, different variety of locks. We have, I think Hedgie primarily uses time-based systems. Our systems are either time-based, which is our baseline, value-based, where you're talking about a lock that's a KPI option connected to a Chainlink oracle, a Bancor oracle, a Schwab oracle, a Teller oracle, whoever you want to use. Or an arbitrary lock that is functioning off a contract that you've deployed on chain. So I would say that our system is a general purpose and much more, advanced version of what Hedgie has been doing. We allow for arbitrary financial positions rather than simple vesting ones. And a specific use case of one of those arbitrary positions is why we're coming to talk to y'all tonight.
Super cool. Thanks for answering that. I know, we're mainly talking about the yield futures, but I think helpful just for the community to understand FNFT.
So in this case, the NFT is a portable GUI. So you're not looking at art. You don't have to go to our website to make this thing work. You can use this from any wallet or marketplace that supports rendering it. And that's how our partners have been able to integrate so easily. So what we are talking to y'all tonight about, and let me go ahead and bring up our discussion of yield futures, is what we call Resonate. And Resonate is a system, and I think this actually works very well for where y'all are in your situation, because I saw that, I heard the conversation and I was quite interested. It sounds very frustrating with what's going on with Rari. It sounds like you may end up having to put more Fox to work, which you're looking at either depleting your stable vault or your Fox vault. And we can help. Our system is designed to take a native token vault, deploy it, and utilize it to regenerate the underlying value. So While you may be spending more tokens out of your native token vault to keep this loan afloat or pay back the loan with a secondary loan, we can help you refurbish and regenerate those missing tokens. What Resonate is it's a highly modified version of stuff that you've probably heard about in CeFi called yield swaps, I believe it is. Interest rate swaps. That's the term they call this in CeFi. But ours is a bit different and shifted a little bit to the left because it doesn't make sense to use CeFi structures in DeFi. Resonate begins with a very simple concept. Say that you have somebody who has 100 tokens. All right, you could stick those tokens into a yield farm, such as ShapeShift's, where if you waited 6 months, you'd get 50% interest. I know that ShapeShift is not 6 month 50%. I know you're 6 month 25%, but I'm going to use my example anyways. So we start off with that. And if you waited 6 months after putting your tokens into that staking system, which is the same thing as a yield farm, which is the same thing as a rebase token, they all produce an income stream, then you would have 150 tokens. However, if instead of using a system along those lines, you were to wait, to not wait, you don't want to wait, and you were to insist that you get tokens up front because you understand how to use the concept of, longs, the concept of hedging, well then, you might end up with a better deal. You might not. The yield rate might go up, and the price of the token might go up, and you might have wished that you got one of those 50 tokens, but it might go down. And if you're not sure which way it's going to head, well, then you might be open to the kind of deal that Resonate has to offer. So let's say that there's a second party, and this second party has 30 tokens. If they were to put these 30 tokens into the ShapeShift yield farm, or a staking system, they would have in 6 months, how many tokens? 45. So that's all right, that's decent, but instead of doing that, they could also pay you, Mr. 100 tokens, 30 tokens right now. You get 30 tokens up front. You can turn around, you can hedge your position, you've got a long. They, in return, get the rights to your interest. So by locking these tokens, by taking them and putting them underneath a revest lock, we can basically change the system so that you get 30 tokens up front and they get the rights to your interest, be that 50 tokens, be that 40 tokens, be that 60 tokens for the next 6 months. What Resonate does is it takes each of these parties, one of whom we refer to as the producer, the other of whom we refer to as the consumer, and it matches them. Anyone can come into Resonate and create a pool. So in this case, a pool would be something that has a certain percentage payout, a certain lockup period, a certain underlying yield farm. We've already partnered with, I think at this point, it's technically 3 protocols that enable yield farming on a variety of different tokens. Can't say quite yet, of course, but they are, I will say this, they're all fairly large protocols, and most of them are based in Phantom. So you specify, your underlying vault, your underlying token, your payment asset. In this example, it's USDC, but it could just as easily be Fox or Fox. It doesn't have to be stable coins. And you go ahead and you set that up. So one person shows up, puts a bunch of tokens in one side of this. Another person shows up, puts in, takes that counterparty position. The positions match. The yield future is created, and the FNFTs are transferred to their respective parties. One gets an FNFT that entitles them to reclaim their capital in 6 months. The other gets an FNFT that entitles them to the yield generated by that principal over the next 6 months. Why is this interesting, though? Why have we come to y'all, a DAO, to discuss treasury management solutions? Well, because out of everyone in the world, a lot of people on the producer side are going to be a little upset that they've just given up 30 tokens and that they can't have those 30 tokens for, a period of time, because it's not like a yield farm where you just put the 30 tokens in there. You just gave those to somebody else. You no longer have 30 tokens. You have the rights to an interest stream. So people who care about the price fluctuations on a token might be a little put off. Not always, but some people. However, groups that don't care about price fluctuations because they are stuck with a treasury of that asset, whether or not they want to have that asset, can't deploy it to a normal yield farm, can't sell it on the open market, that's y'all. You have a large treasury of Fox, and you can't put it into yield farms. You can't sell it. You're looking for ways to deploy it right now as we speak, and I have come to you with a new way to deploy it, and in deploying it, take liquidity off the market by trading time for money. So the general gist is, let's say that you take 100, let's just say you took 30 Fox and you put it in there. Somebody came along and said, okay, here's 100 Fox, I'm gonna lock it up, give me the 30 Fox. And you're thinking, okay, wait, I just gave them 30 Fox, that's 30 Fox that's now in circulation. That's not the case though, because they locked up 100 for 6 months. So immediately, you've got 70 less Fox in circulation. Fast forward 6 months down the road, okay, they've gotten their 100 Fox back. But, if you hadn't done this transaction, I know y'all are an emissions-based system, so this is the way it works for you. Some cases, you actually can end up having the treasury be even larger. But if you're doing staking, what this does is this allows you to slow down your emissions rate. Because instead of paying out a net 50, having a net loss of 50 tokens to this person, you instead have a net loss of 20 tokens. No, 30 tokens. It's 30. Because you paid out, your treasury as staking revenue for them. However, because they got it all up front, they didn't get the other 20, and you held on to that. If you have some sort of a revenue-based system that actually allows you to set up a proper yield farm, well then you can start turning this into an actual truly yield generating, not yield generating, but revenue decreasing system. What we're proposing is to take a certain amount of Fox in the treasury, deploy it to Resonate, and utilize that Fox as a test case to demonstrate, one, the power of Resonate, and two, help y'all suck some of that liquidity back off the market, slow your burn rate, and hold on to your native token treasury while you're having to deal with deploying it to, pay back loans. So that's our proposal. I'm happy to take questions that anyone has.
Hey there. Thanks for showing this to us. I kind of got the gist of it, but I'm trying to concretize it. So would the ShapeShift Treasury be the producer or the consumer?
The ShapeShift Treasury would be the producer.
Okay. And then in your example that you got up there where it says 100 RVST, that becomes 100 Fox, correct?
Yep. That's 100 Fox sucked off the market for the next 6 months, or however long the lockup period is.
Right. And so we put that into the pool, and then a consumer comes around, and they then put in USDC, or did you say we could make it so it doesn't make any sense if it's Fox for Fox, right? It's got to be some other token on the other side.
It can work as Fox for Fox. That's actually one of the baselines we go with, because in that case, okay, you pay them out the 30 Fox, they might sell that to hedge, right? They might use it for that purpose. But on the bright side, they don't have 50 Fox that they're selling.
So, all right, so let's just say it's Fox. So we're putting in 100 Fox. They put in 30 Fox.
No, you put in 30 Fox, they put in 100.
Okay, but we're still the ShapeShift wait a minute. I'm mixing. Oh, the producer's over there. The producer's the 30. The consumer's the 100. Okay. I see. It says where it's waiting for a consumer, but that's the producer that does it. Okay, we put in 30 Fox. They put in 100. They automatically get 30 back from their 100. Right? Right as soon as they lock the 100, they get 30 up front. Do I understand that correctly?
You do.
Okay. And then they also get this NFT. The consumer gets a FNFT that entitles them to the underlying principal.
So that's the rights to get their 100 back in 6 months.
Okay, got it. The 30 is like the interest, but they get that up front. They get the principal back in, we're calling it 6 months. Got it. Okay. Yep. We get an FNFT that gives us
the rights to the interest on your own staking system. This is a way for you to take Fox and bribe people to enter the Fox staking system on your behalf. So you get full exposure to Fox staking.
okay, so but we have an FNFT out of this. And in 6 months, what do we get if anything happens to us after 6 months? That's what.
No, you can claim interest from this FNFT whenever you want. It's a continuous income stream.
And the interest is what happens when the 100 Fox is put into yield farms.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay. All right. That's what we get. We get whatever yield comes from that. The consumers, they've already got their interest. They're going to get their principal back in 6 months. Now, it's now locked in a yield farm, and we're getting the interest from that. And is that just for 6 months also? Yeah, for the 6 months also, because then the consumer gets their principal back and it's all done.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if they were to leave it in there, we do have variations on this where you can say, hey, we as the DAO, we want a guaranteed return. So if the yield rates fluctuate, you can say, okay, we don't want to have to worry about the fluctuating yield rate. Your principal is going to be locked until we get our 50 tokens back. So you can set that sort of a threshold, and then they will have to, if they want to enter the deal, they're going to have to accept that their tokens are locked until you've made 50 tokens worth of interest.
I see.
So you can, in fact, guarantee that this is a profitable deal for you.
You could also guarantee that it's just not a losing deal for you. So you could say, we want to guarantee 30 tokens back, right? At least pay us back what we paid you up front, or 12 months, whichever comes first.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Right. So this has the benefit over Olympus bonds is that it doesn't, I mean, they could go sell those 30 NFTs interest. Yeah, they could just do that. If they get 30 back, they could sell the 30 Fox and then just wait for 6 months and they get their Fox back, and now they've made that interest. So that could produce some sell pressure on Fox.
It is effectively the inverse of Olympus. If you were to pay them in US dollars to give you the Fox yield, that would be a bit more akin to Olympus, but even then it's still effectively the inverse, because the system is designed to give the DAO the more opportune deal. You're not, you're buying their if you pay in USDC, you are buying their Fox tokens right now at a 30% discount. No, 40% discount. However, it's the inverse of what Olympus was doing, to be honest with you. Olympus, you're giving them a better deal.
Yeah, right.
Than they would otherwise be able to get. They're making money off of you. In this case, they're trading their time. You're trading time for money. In Olympus, it's the inverse.
Another way to think about it is that basically the LP holder, if we do this for liquidity providing, or the Foxy holder, if we do it for Foxy, they're basically paying the DAO a tax in order to, like Rob was saying, first of all, they get the time value of money. They get all the interest up front. Also, they're getting rid of the risk of the variable yield, and they're basically trading that to the DAO. So the DAO is buying or selling them. Basically the DAO is getting paid in order to take on the risk of the variable yield, as well as we don't really get the time value of that money, because our yield still happens over time, whereas we're paying out that Fox up front. But we got a lot of Fox sitting idly in the Treasury, so it could be a great way for us to put that Fox to work to basically get more Fox into the Treasury than we would have if we were just paying out the emissions. So one question that I think might help us understand this too. So Olympus right now, one cool thing about Olympus is that the discount is variable. So the discount basically keeps increasing until someone purchases a loan. In this example, the tax is basically 40%. The holder is paying a 40% tax to the DAO. How is that 40% determined? Is it hard coded by the DAO and we configure the offering, or is it dynamic? Yeah.
It's a lot like Rari in that anyone can show up and configure a pool. Anyone. It can be the DAO, it can be a random user, it can be literally anyone in the world. But then you choose which pool you want to enter into the queue. And there's two queues. There's the producer queue and the consumer queue. And, orders stack up on one side. And then when someone shows up on the other side and says, hey, I want to enter here and accept this deal, then, the order at the head of the queue gets matched with that new order, and they go off and become FNFTs. But you can set parameters to determine the tax at, 50, 60, 70%. It's all about the numbers that you as the DAO create, because more likely than not, most people will just enter at the one that has liquidity. So when you're playing the role of the DAO as the producer, you have a bit more leeway in choosing which pool you want to enter, or just creating a pool to fit your parameters.
Very interesting.
Yeah, if you haven't actually activated the capital in a pool and the market's no longer favorable, you can just pull the capital out of the queue, create another pool, redeploy it there.
And in these pools, are we hard coding that discount rate, or can we do it like on a curve, basically, where the earlier
is hard coded, just because it would get really weird if people just suddenly saw these things changing without any notice. You've stuck your money into a pool, you think you're getting a certain rate at a good deal that you feel comfortable with, and that deal shifts on you 5 days later, I'd be mad.
Got it. Well, yeah, and I wasn't thinking necessarily changing the rules after somebody has already purchased one of these, but basically making it so, like with Olympus, like every time someone purchases one, the discount basically changes. So basically having it like an order book, basically, or instead of just like one huge order, basically we have orders across the range.
It's effectively an order book in time rather than space, but the problem becomes that if someone has entered the queue and the price, the rate changes on them, it's unsettling, because they entered the queue expecting a certain price, and say a day's gone by and that's just changed.
Okay, got it.
There's also a question of who selects those values if you put it on a curve, because it just gets weird if you start putting things on a curve, because really what we want to do is allow the free hand of the market to say, okay, this is a good deal, a lot of people are using this deal, and then we rank that deal higher. Kind of like Rari has, certain interest rates that they set when they create the pool, and that's the rate, though it is programmatically determined. There is a baseline value that is set for a given pool.
It's on a curve, though. But yeah, no, I hear you. So it sounds like I just want to make sure that we understand this, and I don't fully understand it ourselves. So like, let's imagine that the DAO, the community approves doing this, and we want to make some offers. What does that look like, basically? What are some of the parameters that the DAO would need to determine? And is that, yeah.
There's several. First of all, the DAO would have to decide, do y'all want to do fixed term, which is the 6-month option, or fixed income, which is the 50 token option? So that's choice number one. Choice number two would be, okay, how long are we going to lock up for? And what is our payout rate going to be? So in the example I've given, it's 6 months and 30%. Y'all are paying out 50% over, I believe, a year. So 30% is a pretty favorable rate to whoever takes the other side of that deal. I might go with 25.
60%.
60% is way over the value of that. Get out of here, Adam. Get out.
Dude, it's 60%. 30 tokens out of 50 is 60%.
Yes. Okay. I'm still thinking in tokens, not. You're correct. You're thinking in terms of APYs. I'm thinking in terms of just number of tokens. But yeah, I get what you're saying. So you'd also want to choose the standardized order size. So typically, in this example, I've used an order size of 100 tokens, but I would suggest using something like 1 token or even 0.1 tokens. The system is designed to work just fine with, small fractions of a token. You won't normally notice this. It just determines like what someone can enter at. So if there's if there's packet sizes of 0.1 tokens, then when I enter on the interest side, I can only enter at fractions of, I think, 0.3, 0.03. I don't want to do that math in my head right now. But you'd have to choose the packet size, you'd have to choose the payout rate, you have to choose the lockup rate. If you're going with the fixed income, you need to go ahead and choose what your target is. In the case that we just spoke about, it's 50%, but you could just as easily say I'm really okay with 40%.
Sorry, was that the same as the tax that we had talked about before? So like, how long are we going to lock up, and what will the tax be, or is that a separate parameter?
This is so if you're locking up okay, I should not say percentage, I should say tokens. So in this case, we're talking about 100 token packets, 50 tokens, 40 tokens. That's when the lock will unlock. This is the second type of FNFT. This is the yield future. This is the fixed income one that has this parameter. The other ones don't have this parameter.
Got it.
If you're picking the fixed term, you choose the lockup period. If you're picking the fixed income, you choose the amount that you want to get back in interest before the lock will unlock. So those are the parameters. We would have to set up an adapter for the Fox staking system. My Solidity devs have told me that probably won't be very hard. From what we can see, y'all are using a fairly just industry standard system, and it shouldn't be too hard to put a 4626 adapter on top of it, which would have the added benefit that now you're ERC 4626 compliant.
And what would happen if we did this and the contract, the staking contract, is going to change, right? It ends in a month or so, just about a month, and there'll be a new one. Would we need to work with you on the back end to switch the tokens, exit from one contract and stake them into another?
Well, we're looking at a launch for this product in early August, so it would probably just be one.
That's a ways out. Okay, yep.
We're pre-product. We've got Solidity 90% complete in unit testing. Web app is in early prototyping phase.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, good.
We are a little ways out from actually going product. We are looking to pull y'all in as a pre-launch partner.
Okay. In August, if this happened in August, then there'd be probably another 3 months on that staking contract. And if we would do one that's a pool that had a 6-month maturity, we would still need to be able to do something.
We could probably build an adapter that would allow the contracts to be switched.
Yeah.
Because if we're building an adapter, we just specify which contract is the staking contract and build in some backwards compatibility.
Okay. Yeah. So there's just that'd be a requirement to consider on your side.
I appreciate that. I don't think that would be terribly difficult system to implement.
Cool. So we're running low on time. I want to make sure we talk about, let's talk about this this launch and kind of why ShapeShift should consider being a launch partner. If there's any special benefits there, if you guys are going to be marketing to drive eyeballs to these opportunities, if we offer them. Of course, we could also offer our own UI UX for it, but it's also great to know if you guys are driving people there. Would love to hear about that. And then also Ocean posted.
Yes, he asked about the exploit. I saw.
Would love to hear about that.
I'm going to go ahead and address that first because that is the elephant in the room. Our contracts suffered an exploit back in late March. Since then, if you take a look, actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up myself and share it in the chat so that everyone can see it. We implemented an extremely rigorous security checklist. And though I have not yet released it because I've been running around for meetings the first 2 days this week, we have passed the second audit. We already announced that we passed the first one. We were audited by Zelic as a follow-up to our initial audit following a extremely aggressive systems upgrade. So basically, we totally overhauled the way that our systems store tokens. At the moment, we are the strongest system for security in all of DeFi because we use counterfactual smart wallets to store tokens now. You may ask, what the hell is a counterfactual smart wallet, Rob? The answer to that is that we take the tokens from your wallet. We use a next generation vault system to predict the address that the FNFTs will have when they eventually do deploy a contract to that address. We send the tokens from your wallet to that address, which has no contract. It's a blank address, nothing living there. And those tokens just sit there at an address that doesn't even have a contract deployed at it until you're ready to withdraw. When you're ready to withdraw, we deploy a new contract to that address. We withdraw the tokens from it, and then we self-destruct the contract in the same transaction to save on gas. So, as far as I'm aware, we're the only group using that pattern right now. Zelic, when we were speaking with them, said that they were going to recommend it to pretty much everyone else they work with from now on. And we passed that audit with flying colors. The same can be said of BlockSec, who were some of the people who actually detected, they detected a follow-up vulnerability that had not been detected in our initial contract following that exploit. So those initial contracts were unfortunately flawed. The follow-up contracts have been audited by two of the best groups in the business and have passed that trial of fire with no further issues discovered. So we're quite proud of that. We are currently in the stages of putting together an NFT raise to make those who lost money in that exploit whole. I don't think that a lot of people in DeFi do that, but we're doing our best to make that entire situation as right as we can. And unpleasant time, but we have worked very hard at making it right. As to UI and UX, we are offering our own web app for this. Y'all will be welcome to integrate with it. We'll be happy to put together some SDK resources or just even set up a link. But really our thinking at the moment is that it's going to be based in the Resonate web app. We would, of course, offer verification for all ShapeShift-based pools because you do want people to go to the pools that, have the official backing of the actual token creators and token administrators. So that would be quite simple to put together. Other than that, I wish I had the UI UX to show you right now. We are still waiting on the Figma to get back to us. I can show you a few of the art concepts to give you an idea of where our design is headed right now, but we've got a fantastic design team out of Poland that we work with, and they are absolute top quality shop.
Sweet, love good design. Yeah, I think it'd be great to post that in the forum post. I guess so. You guys mentioned that you're aiming for launch in August. When do you think the community should consider this? Obviously, we got to get it. We're not going to have our new liquidity mining programs live until the 7th. Talk to us about timeline and when you would like us to basically decide whether or not we would like to participate as launch partner.
I would think that early July would be ideal. Good to get it done sooner than later, so this AMA is fresh in everyone's mind, but I think as late as early July is totally acceptable. I know there'll be questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. I really appreciate you guys coming to this AMA today to give us an overview. And you're familiar with our governance process, and you're in the first phase of it. So let me know if you have any questions about the governance process. And otherwise, community, I encourage everyone to check out the forum post and get involved in the discussion because it looks like we'll probably see an ideation post about this soon.
We're excited to be working with y'all, and we look forward to a fruitful discussion and hopefully an exciting partnership.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Dollar Bill, Revest team. Thank you, community. It's been another great Foxenomics office hours, and I look forward to continuing the conversations in the metaverse.
Thank you for having us, Willie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, that's all today, folks. DM, see you guys around.